Hello and welcome to the Peaceful Empowerment Work Show. We are live on WGSN-DB, goingboldmedia.com. I am your co-host, Judy Forder, and I am here with my co-host and peace, Miss
Kris Burke. Hi, everybody. Also live. It just struck me as funny. We are live. It's like, well, yeah.
Well, of course we are.
Yes.
Before we get started, if you enjoy our content and you would like to help us share it to the masses, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Today we start a four-part series. It's a special edition for teachers. How to cut the chaos in your classroom. Today, I had to take a deep breath because if you've watched the show, you know I was a teacher, and in this topic alone, it has brought up a lot of school-based trauma that I didn't realize I was still carrying. So we're going to turn it over to Kris and let her take the lead and guide us. We got on a couple and she's like, how you doing? I was like, quite honestly, I am very anxious.
A lot of anxiety. Well, yeah. And this is such a great example of why we're doing this particular series because, I will talk about traumatic experience I had in high school, like people spreading lies through the school and everybody believing it, and my best friends turning their backs on me, and school became a very hostile experience. I actually graduated early because it was such a hostile environment. And so when I've over the years, people have asked me like, do you still have friends from school or whatever? And I've said, no, that wasn't really to be. And I told the little bite-sized morsel of the story. I can't tell you how many women said, oh yeah, that happened to me too. Like apparently we're all being traumatized in high school and we're not, we're feeling, this is just coming to me now. Because I felt that it must have been my fault.
Mm-hmm.
All of those years. I don't anymore. I do see my role in it, in how I handled it. I would handle it differently now, but I was a different person then. I didn't know what I know now. But in talking to people, I think we always have this little bit of shame. Must have been something I did. I must have deserved it. So we don't really want to talk about it because we think that the person we're telling is thinking bad things about us. Like, wow, you must have been a real asshole to have everybody turn on you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which was actually not true. Sure. I mean, I was a teenager like, everybody else. So I had my emotions and I had my days of defiance and my days of brilliance and everything in between. But it wasn't actually like being difficult that got people to attack me. It was the fact that I actually loved school. Um, and I did really well in school. It just happened to be that the way my brain works happens to line up really well with the way teaching was done at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a good match. My brilliance happened to match the curriculum. And so I excelled. I think now about how many people in the classroom, I never thought of it at the time, right? But I think now about how many people in my class were sitting there not having a good time, not having their brilliance aligned with the curriculum and kind of sinking over the years lower and lower in their chairs. Right. And predictably, those were the people who ended up turning to, first it was smoking cigarettes, sneaking outside onto the loading dock to smoke cigarettes. And then over time, it was sneaking out for other things, drinking and, drugs and whatnot and getting into trouble. Why not? Because sitting in school, being reminded by the people who happen to be in alignment with the curriculum, who were kind of shining and glowing and in a way that would feel obnoxious if you can't get that there, right? Being reminded that you're not that would be terribly upsetting. I mean, day after day, year after year. And so while high school became an aggressive place for me, had it not been like, had that last 6 months not happened, I would have left thinking high school was great, and anybody who didn't think so just wasn't trying hard enough, and I honestly would have believed that. Mhm.
Yeah, cookie cutter education. It's not good.
No.
It's not good. My brother excelled in everything that he was interested in.
Mm,
Everything.
mhm.
And it was working with his hands. Anything that needed to be known about working with his hands. He's great with fractions. He's great with numbers. He's great with this. He's great with that. And that wasn't important when he was in school. Cookie
Right,
cutter didn't work for him.
right.
And he was made to feel like he was an idiot because of it.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think one of the things I think, happened to line up well was I was good at memorizing,
Hmm.
right? So, I have a little bit of a photographic memory, really good at memorizing. It doesn't mean I retain it. I was very good at studying for a test,
Hmm.
taking a test, and if you'd asked me an hour after the test, one of the questions on it, it was gone already because I
Hmm.
knew, no, I put it in short-term memory. You don't want to fill your brain with that kind of nonsense. You just put it in short-term memory. You take your test, you drop it on the paper, and you leave. Right? So I'm not saying that it was working for me,
Hmm.
except that it was building my confidence. And so one of the things that I think um, what kids need out of school more than anything is they need the confidence to know that their brilliance is inside of them. Everybody has brilliance inside of them. And it's our job as a society. I don't want to put all the pressure on the teachers
Hmm.
because the teachers are connected to the rest of a society that doesn't operate this way, and so it's unfair to expect them to take on the brunt. But if we want a peaceful world, we need peaceful kids, and peaceful kids are feeling empowered, and they know where their brilliance is, and they're interested naturally in that area, and they start to engage and invest time and energy into those things that light them up. And in doing so, they discover new things, they create new things, they create beautiful things, right? They find joy, they find love, and they share that with everybody around them. What we don't get is, war, depression, drugs, anxiety, suicide. All of the things that are kind of commonplace in our schools are commonplace because our kids don't feel connected to their own brilliance.
Yeah, that's true. And we don't want to put all the responsibility on the teachers because it's not the teacher's fault. You're standing in front of a classroom full of kids that have been traumatized,
Yes.
and you yourself have been traumatized. And this is where, that school-based trauma has been coming up for me, just preparing for the show and thinking about, my experiences. My experiences in elementary school were good. Middle school, a little testy. You had to figure out how to get through the day without becoming a target. And then I got to high school and I was an athlete. So I got to socialize that way. Did I love the education part of it? No. I'm dyslexic and nobody picked up on it. So I just thought I was dumb. But I enjoyed it for the social aspect. So high school was okay for me. Did I have any close friends? Did I, one or two? I wasn't one that traveled with a big crew. I was friendly with a lot of people, knew a lot of people, but core friendships, I have one person from high school that I keep in constant contact with, and that's it.
Hmm.
It wasn't until I started teaching. I wanted to be a teacher. My grandfather was so proud of me and my sister because it was an honorable profession. Teachers were respected, and he was so proud to say that his granddaughters were becoming teachers and are teachers, and it was very different than what he remembered when we started teaching. And I had an experience my first year of teaching where it was made abundantly clear to me that administrators were not to be trusted. And that's a generalization. I understand that. But me being that young, witnessing what I witnessed, in my head, it wasn't that administrator is not to be trusted, it's all of them.
Right.
And in the 24 years that I taught, I had many administrators, and there were two that I could trust.
Mm.
So that's the trauma that's coming up in me. That's, things that I never dealt with. I left the profession and I never turned back.
Right.
So I've never had to confront it. I've never had to face it. And when I was teaching, one of the first things whenever I went through an observation, whether it be my supervisor or my principal, assistant principal, one of the first things they would say is they would compliment me on my relationship with the kids, because I always made it a point to make sure the kids understood I was there for them. The
Mm-hmm.
content, yeah, we'll get to that, but I'm here for you. And that was something that I refused to bend on. That was a boundary that I set within myself
Mm-hmm.
and made a priority.
Yeah. Was school a safe place for you? I mean, as a child, I don't mean as a teacher.
As a child, like I said, elementary school, yeah. Middle school, not so much.
Talk
I
about that a little. It's important.
I acquired a lot of survival skills in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
It was a situation where, when you're a minority, you become a target.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't for, a couple key teachers and a friend of mine that I had, in elementary school, I would have been a target every single day.
Yep.
So it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got to high school, things were very different. And I enjoyed that. And it makes me remember my school experiences as very good.
That's excellent. That's
You know,
excellent. Yeah.
so
I'm
yeah.
seeing kind of a thread between school being dangerous in middle school, like dangerous. It was
Mm,
scary. It was traumatizing, terrifying, right? And you put on the tough exterior because that's survival says you better. If you look weak, they're going to make it twice as bad.
yeah.
So it was not safe for you in middle school. So when you become a teacher, your number one priority is to make sure those kids know they're safe,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
And you immediately have an experience with an administrator that kind of reinforces, oh, that's right, school isn't safe.
Hmm.
So I'm going to be the protector, right?
There, there's my protector.
There's your protector. I'm going to be the protector. Yeah, because this is not a safe place. Um, yeah, interesting. I mean, what is that? You kind of feel that connection.
Yeah, I do now.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's important. Everybody, we were talking earlier about everybody has a different experience of school, right? There are no blanket statements that are true. Not all schools this, not all teachers that, not all kids, not all parents, not all whatever. We like to say those things because wouldn't that make it easy to organize in our heads?
Hmm.
Right? Our intellect likes to say, oh, all, what the problem is with kids today? What are there 2 billion kids in our world? You know the problem with all 2 billion kids. And a lot of people, yes, I do. Okay, please tell me. Because intellect does that. That's how it works, right? It's not because it's trying to be difficult. It just wants to be able to store things in the way that intellect works, which is labels and patterns, right? So it needs to be able to say this group of people, or of this breed of dog, or of this, color house, whatever it is. It has to be able to categorize and then tell you about it, tell you a story about it. I know about this thing, right? Based on very little information. That's how the intellect works. So it's important to realize when we talk about getting into zone 3, and maybe the map would be helpful. Um, Saverio, if you can put that up. When we get to zone 3, thanks so
Thank
much. When we get to zone 3 and we're in that curious, creative, exploring, experimenting place, we're really focusing on and prioritizing what are the experiences of each child in my classroom at my dining room table. I don't know if we do dining room tables anymore, but wherever under my roof, in my environment, what's my experience and what's their experience. And one of the things that kind of blew my mind early on is, if you want to know how the people in your class or the people around you are feeling, get clear about the way you're feeling and you'll be really close, because our feelings create kind of a soup um, in our environment. If you've ever walked into a room and somebody's back was to you and they didn't say a word or move a muscle and you instantly knew what mood they were in, you were feeling the emotional soup. You walked in la 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 with a nice, boundary of la 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 around you, and you ran into meh, and you went, I feel that. That feels different, right? But we haven't been trained to think in that way. So it probably didn't occur to you in that manner, but you know that something's up. So if we're in a classroom and we're feeling like, oh, this is so stressful and this is so difficult and it's so frenetic, chaotic, then you know for sure the kids in the classroom are feeling the same.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And what do we know about being in chaotic energy, Judy, in terms of learning?
Oh, when we're in chaotic energy, that's all zone 1, zone 2,
Mhm.
and in that, especially in zone 1, it's survival mode. The brain can't engage in anything other than survival techniques.
Right.
So to teach them something new is virtually impossible.
Yes, absolutely. Memorization doesn't come online until zone 2,
Mhm.
right? The intellect is really good at memorizing. Instinct isn't. It's not what it's paying attention to.
No.
So kids that are asked to memorize things when they're an instinct, it's like asking them to, I don't know, fly when they're underwater. It's like, no, you can't do that here. It's not that they're not capable.
Mm-mm.
Well, I don't know, they could fly, but put them on a trampoline or a swing or something, a trapeze. That's what I was trying to think of. Put them on a trapeze over a nice safety net, right? Those kids will fly.
Mhm.
But if they're underwater, they can't. It's not possible. And so what happens a lot of times in schools and in our homes is that we'll look at the kid who's currently in zone 1 and we'll ask or sometimes insist that they do a zone 2 um, behavior, and they're not able to. And we think, well, there's something wrong with this kid. And we might get angry at the kid who's already in zone 1 because, why are you not doing this zone 2 thing? And the kid doesn't know. They just know they can't. Right now, I can't. Of course, they'd like to. I mean, everybody would prefer to be able to just do the thing that keeps peace going. But the kids that don't, it's because their instincts have taken over. They've been triggered. They're in fight or flight, and their energy is running the show. They're not able to intervene on their own behalf.
Exactly. Being in that zone 1 survival is just, yeah. And the chaos within the child shows itself very differently.
Yes.
Some kids will be, belligerent. Some kids will sit and cry. Some kids will close themselves in, and just try their best to be invisible.
Some kids will be perfectionists.
There you go. Some kids will be the class clown.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's survival techniques look different, and we can know that as adults, but it's the same thing going on with our kids.
It is.
And I can remember being a teacher and being told, that kid that's acting up, you want to love all your kids. That kid that's acting up is actually the one that needs more love than the rest. And it was always something that I would think about. And, it did make me step beyond, oh, that kid's just being an ass.
Right.
It doesn't know discipline, doesn't know this, doesn't know that. I was one of those that would throw it all around,
Sure.
but really being able to sit and think, I wonder what's behind that.
Right.
But in order for me to do that, I couldn't be in zone one either.
Exactly.
That was the biggest thing is I couldn't be in zone one. I couldn't be in zone two. I had to be in a place of, you know, back then I just called it solid. I just had to be solid.
Yeah.
We were taught no matter what's going on with your life, leave that shit outside the door. And when you come in the classroom, you're there to do your job. You're there to be there for the kids. And yeah, in theory, that's great. That's great. And then in the process of me teaching, the one thing that we had going for us was school was relatively a safe place as far as physically safe. Community members weren't going to come in or no bad guys were going to come in and do anything terrible. Well, you know what? That changed in our society too,
Hmm.
which brought in a whole new level of stress and anxiety and fear.
Yeah. And again, because I always like to zoom out to the big picture. Of course, that's happening in our society because we've got kids who are sitting in fight or flight mode throughout their entire childhood,
Yep.
right? Which means that's all they know. They don't know what it is to get up in the morning and look outside and say, wow, what a beautiful day. How fortunate I am to be alive here. They don't have that experience because they're so busy trying to take care of all of the crises that they perceive to be around them. And I'm not going to say those crises aren't real. It's just that, some of them are real and a lot of them are them reliving the bad things that have happened in the past and projecting that into, oh my God, that could happen again.
Hmm.
Right? Why do I know that? From personal experience.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going to say the things we talk about today, I mean, these are our experiences. Like you said, we can't speak for everybody else out there, but we can speak from where we were, where we are, what we have experienced. And
Yeah.
everybody in your building, if you're a teacher watching, if you're an administrator watching, if you're in a school building, everybody in there has experienced trauma.
Yeah. I worked with some teachers last year who were really brave about getting together and talking about what was going on in the classrooms and how they felt so incompetent. They cared. It's like and they had come up with all kinds of conclusions like you can't connect with these kids. These kids need things that we can't provide for them in the school. Administrators are asking for unreasonable, impossible things that we can never do. And of course, I can't quit my job. I'm stuck.
Hmm.
Right. So they had all of these things that were kind of swirling around in their heads and messing with their energy, putting them in zone one. So I actually had somebody actually who was kind of a strong, like almost a little bit of a bully energy at the school, who actually looked me in the eye in front of all these people and said, "We've been traumatized." And then looked back down and I said, "I know." Right? I mean, this is the truth. We've been traumatized as a society. And I know when I said that at the time, I said, this is the thing. We're all pretending that we're okay. We're
Hmm.
not. We've been traumatized. Look at what's been falling down around us. This steady barrage of things going on and, terrible things going on all of the time. Everything is getting worse and worse and worse. Right? And we are already saturated with trying to deal with our own lives. And then all of this other stuff comes in too. Most people right now, and the statistics back this up, are suffering with anxiety, um, depression, and all of the different coping mechanisms that they've developed to try to deal with their anxiety and depression.
Hmm. Fact. That's
Fact.
fact.
Yeah.
My teacher friends and I would frequently sit around and just kind of joke about, we should take a poll of how many teachers are medicated.
Hmm.
depression, for stress, for anxiety, for all of it, because the coping mechanisms, I mean, that's where you zone one, survival,
Yeah.
survival. So when you as a teacher are in survival mode, you can't see your way out of a plastic bag, and you
No,
suffocate, you know?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you sit in that loop of, you know, my hands are tied, I can't do anything, because you literally can't.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So true. When you're in zone one, you cannot. You're going to think, feel, do whatever your instincts are going to think, feel, do until that part of you that hangs out in zone three all the time has the ability to go, wait a minute, what's going on here? As soon as you say that, as soon as you say, wait, what's happening? Where am I? You'll bring that zone three part of you forward. And that's the part that can deal with whatever comes up your way.
Mhm. Yeah, that's when you start to have and confidence. You said confidence earlier, and it was like flashing letters in my head. Confidence, confidence, confidence. Because you have to have the confidence to explore and experiment.
Yeah.
And, my experience, I was a special ed teacher. So I was a PE teacher at that. I got to play games. I got to experiment. I got to explore. I got to do things like that. Um, it was encouraged that we do things like that. Yet I have a ton of friends that are classroom teachers that, as time has progressed, it's, focus on test scores, test scores, test scores. Something that never ever made sense to me was the schools that don't perform well on the standardized tests get less funding.
Right.
How does that make sense?
Right. Right. Right.
And then there was the big push where politicians wanted to pay teachers based on their students' test scores, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So you get wrapped up in this, glued to the curriculum, where you're not encouraged to explore and experiment.
Yeah. I went
So
into that school. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just saying, so having the confidence to be willing to do that and try something different, it takes confidence, guts, moxie, moxie.
It does.
I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to talk you through it. I mean, that's why we want to do this. Like today is part one. So we just want to talk about what's going on in the classrooms. Like, can we agree when we go through our programs, when we work on things ourselves in our own lives, we always start with what's the truth of the situation now? Right? What's going on? Because in order to get motivated to do something different, in order to reach down and find that, that courage and the energy to try something new, which will take a little bit of energy, right, in the beginning. In order to do that, we have to feel pretty emotionally connected to the idea that this is going to end. What's going on right now is going to end. No, this is not okay. I'm creating something new.
Hmm.
Right? And I'll tell you, I when I went into the school and we talked about the program events, results that we were having with kids and adults and whatnot. One of the things we heard was that we're not allowed to experiment on the kids,
Hmm.
right? Which kind of just cracks me up because what we're talking about is inviting the kids to get involved in their own experience.
Hmm.
We're asking them to share, like to realize that do you like this chaos and this noise or even, what do you like? What's your favorite part of being in school? What's the worst part about being in school? Right? What would have to be happening here for you to jump out of bed in the morning and be excited to come here? And then working with the kids, getting the kids to think, because you know what? They're still connected to infinite intelligence. I mean, kids are brilliant, because they don't have so many of they haven't been, say, beaten down by life quite so much yet, right? So they'll get inspired. They'll be open to the inspiration if we can help them to feel safe,
Yeah.
that we genuinely want to know that there are no stupid ideas, that we want to work together to create a great environment for you, not so you could get through Mr. or Ms., so and so's class. I mean, it's part of it, but really because once you learn how to cultivate that experience inside of you, you become zone 3 anchored. You become somebody who's able to take that experience wherever you go. Someone who can say, I won't work for people who insist upon bullying. That's legitimate,
Hmm.
right? Does it mean that you have to leave teaching because you won't work for a bully? No. There are administrators and out there in the world who are genuinely evolved, compassionate people
Hmm.
who really want to do what's right for the teachers and the kids in the community. And they've done enough internal work healing their own trauma that they're able to do that. Right? That you wanting to stand up and make a difference won't threaten them so that they want to squash you back down.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talk about this a lot as far as, old survival techniques that used to work aren't working now.
Mm-mm.
And I feel like that you're finding the same things in the classroom. So the question we have is, are you ready to experiment and try something new?
Mm-hmm.
Because, when you said, ask the kids, do they like the chaos that's going on around them? Earlier, you said they don't know any different.
Right.
They don't, there's a lot of them that don't know anything other than the
Right.
chaos. And it's interesting, they want me to share this. And during COVID, when all schools had to go online, teachers got a little window into the world that their students live in. And some teachers were devastated
Mm-hmm.
because we really have no idea.
Yeah.
So getting back into the classroom and looking at your students and there, as for a fact now that there are some that just don't even know anything other
Right.
than what they present. So giving them the opportunity to experience what it feels like to be calm is life changing for them. you know and that's what we found with my client that we talked about last week. She did it because she had to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And when she found the peace within herself and shared her tools with her kids, it changed everything.
Yes. And that's exactly the point, is that the only reason, don't do it for the kids.
Mm-mm.
Don't do it for the administrators. Don't do it for your resume. Do it because you need it to be different.
Yeah.
And that will start to change everything.
Yes.
I need it to be different. I can't control it into being different.
Mm-mm.
That's zone 2. I can't legislate it. I can't make more rules. I can't be more bullying, more controlling in order to make things different. By now, we've all learned that, right? Globally, I think we've gotten that one down. That doesn't work, right? So, but we can stand in a place of peace and invite people to come in and cultivate that with us. And what I love so much about the work that we do is that we're talking about the fact that that peace state exists in each one of us, right? It's there. It's ready to go. And the kids, you don't have to teach the kids about peace. You have to help them to get into a place where they're able to access it, to relax enough to open up to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start, playing around with that curiosity, kind of sparking that curiosity and their creativity, and boom, the rest will happen. Right. And they'll get, when people are in a curious, creative place, they're not self-destructive.
No.
And they're not other destructive.
Mm-mm.
Right. That's zone 1, zone 2 behavior. And it just is. It's not because people are bad. It's because when they're in zone 1, their instincts are running the show. And if the instincts perceive somebody to be a threat for whatever reason, it's fight, flight, or freeze.
Yep.
Right? They're going to shut down. I've seen kids that wear hoodies up over their head and don't make eye contact for, 12 years of going through school.
Hmm.
One of those people actually came to one of our horse programs, and I don't remember if it was the second or third day, she walked up to me with her hood down and said, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Of course." And this brilliant young woman who'd been thinking about something I'd said 2 days ago, and we had a lovely conversation about it. Right. So it just goes to show that she hadn't felt like anybody wanted to know what was going on with her or anybody wanted to connect with her. And I'm not saying the teachers didn't try and the administrators didn't try either. What I'm saying is, I think a lot of the school environments have become zone one, zone two battleground feeling places.
Hmm.
And if we're not in that energy, kids can feel it. We can feel it in one another. When somebody is genuinely a safe place for you to talk, they will, because they're dying to connect.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And I spent 15 years getting to zone 3 and zone 4 in a way that I can hold it pretty much regardless of what's going on. I mean, I've had people yell at me publicly, and I was just amazed at how I was kind of just sitting there going, "Oh, yeah, here I'm." Like, if I hadn't done my work, I couldn't have sat there because I would have gone immediately to zone 1.
Hmm.
Right? I would have shut down. I would have felt like I had to defend myself, all of these things. Instead, I was being yelled at, and I thought, wow, here I am. I'm okay. I wonder what's going on with them, that this is what's coming through.
That's the biggest thing. You see it through different eyes. You don't
Yeah.
take it as a personal attack. It's like, oh, well, something's been triggered in them.
Right.
Wonder what's
Yeah.
going on. It's more of a
Yeah.
curiosity, like you said. Like, isn't this fascinating how they're lashing out at me? And you would come back and tell me about the experience, and it would make me laugh because I could
Yeah.
totally just see you sitting there being like, oh, huh, I
Yeah.
wonder what's going on inside of them.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're trying to help people, right?
Hmm.
Imagine you go in and you're trying to help people and it's genuine. And you're like, I can see we're struggling here. I've learned some things doing this work that could potentially help, and people like start yelling at you.
Hmm.
um, it's very obvious that it's not about you. Right? I mean, you could say, no, we don't want your help.
Hmm.
Okay. But yelling at you, that's somebody being triggered. That's somebody in zone 1, expressing their trauma.
Hmm.
But you can't say to somebody when they're expressing their trauma, oh, this is you in zone 1 expressing your trauma. I mean, you can't do that. So it's one of the reasons that we do our work, is because we know how it's important when people are not in trauma, when they're not having a trauma response in the moment, when we're not in zone 1, to talk to us about do we like being in zone 1? And what are we going to do about that? Because once you learn there is a zone 1 and you can recognize it in yourself, you can short circuit it when it happens in real time.
Yeah. Because zone one, we talk about emotional loops. You get
Yeah.
into emotional loop and things start to snowball. So if you can just stop yourself, pause and breathe, that stops that emotional loop.
Yeah.
Deep breaths, get that oxygen to the brain, then you can make a choice. It's all about making a choice. Um, I questioned Kris about saying how to cut your chaos in your classroom today. So, what is our nugget for today? If teachers are watching and they want to go into their classrooms and try something tomorrow, what's our
Mhm.
nugget?
Our nugget tomorrow would be, I would invite your kids to laugh for 60 seconds. They don't have to face one another. They don't have to do it. That this is the thing. You feel the energy of invitation, not demand, not instruction. It's invitation, because laughter connects us with our higher consciousness. It connects us with our joy, with our inspiration, our creativity, our curiosity naturally. Right? They can make funny faces at one another. They're not to touch, right? Some safety rule. Can we agree? Right? Just set up some things. And then if there are people who want to, put their heads down on their desk and not see because the whole thing would make them so uncomfortable, don't worry about it. The laughter will do the trick to shifting the vibration in the room. And over time, it will be a sanctuary for the kids. a safe way to start their day and reset whatever's kind of been dropped on them since they saw you last.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of my daughter, high school age kids, and all that kind of stuff. You know, play the well. We say use the language that they understand. Find yourself a funny reel, a funny Instagram, something like that, where you can play, and they're going to look at you and say, "Oh, you're cringy," or whatever. But open yourself up to invite the laughter.
Yes. Laughter is contagious, and a courageous teacher standing in front of the class and being vulnerable enough to laugh. I mean, it can be a fake, ridiculous laugh, right? It's contagious.
Yeah.
Feel it in your stomach. It will reset the anxiety for the kids in your room, even the ones who didn't laugh.
Yeah. Yes. And I can hear myself. Make sure it's not a sarcastic laugh, because I was a sarcastic laughter. I would do that. Ha! You guys are freaking hilarious. Yeah. Get that laughter up. Do something. Picture something that makes you laugh, because if you can do it, it sets the tone for them to do it.
Yeah. And you can even tell them it's a trick for anxiety attacks.
Mm-hmm.
How I stopped anxiety attacks was through laughter. So if I ever start to feel panicky, a quick, 10-second laugh or even a 5-second laugh will totally turn off that anxiety and reset my physiology. That's a scientific fact.
Yeah. And you know what? What's it going to hurt? Why not give it
Yeah.
a try?
Yeah. The experimenting on the kids, I think, laughing with them is probably safe enough.
All
We
right.
believe.
Exactly. So that's it for today. We're out of time. And I personally look forward to seeing where the other 3 parts of this series goes.
Me too. Hey, teachers, write to us.
Yeah, tell us. If you want us
Yeah.
to focus on something specific for you, we'll do it.
Yeah.
We'll do it. And I want to end with this quote from Albert Einstein. Everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid.
Boom. Mic drop.
Thank you for joining us. And again, reach out to us if there's anything specific you want us to work with.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.
Thanks,
Thank you, Kris.
everybody. Thanks, Judy.
Bye-bye.